Welcome back to Qore Conversations. This is the official podcast from QoreAI, in case you did not know. And we always talk about forward-thinking, AI, data, especially in the automotive industry. What we're talking about next is really the stuff that kind of works. So today's episode, of course, I'm sitting down with Todd Smith, QoreAI's CEO. We're going to talk again about more real AI in automotive, not the hype, not the buzzwords, just the way that Todd delivers honest answers to the real questions. And today, I've actually pulled a few things that are coming from the questions that dealers are kind of asking about AI. And I think that's really important. So let's jump in. The place I want to start with you is one that you hear all the time, which is AI for dealers like a plug and play? Is it that simple? We just plug and play and here we go. Because a lot of vendors pitch their tools like this, like just out of the box. It's the way it's going to work. So I don't think that's probably the case. But what are your thoughts on that? Is AI plug and play?
Definitely not plug and play for AI. I think you have to kind of step back and look. I believe AI is still pretty bad software, but it's good people. And what I mean by that is if you expect that you can just plug in an AI tool and it'll behave like a SaaS application, you will be gravely disappointed in the outcomes. But if you treat it like a person, let's say a new hire, where you have to train it, give it context, give it meaning, give it feedback, I think you are far more delighted in the outcomes of that. So definitely not a plug and play thing today.
And you talk about, and I think it's really smart. It's a really good framework where you compare AI to hiring an intern, not buying software. And I really love that. Can you break that down a little bit more for us? Like, what should a dealer specifically actually expect when they hire AI, and kind of how it evolves around their team over time?
Yeah. So look, it's going to depend where in the business you want to start using it. And I always say start small. Look at a workflow where implementing an AI collaborator with you accelerates maybe something you're already trying to do. So you could do something as simple as, customer outreach, out of CRM, kind of low hanging fruit, easy one. It could be something a little bit more advanced, like always looking for opportunities in your existing data. Case in point, dealers have a lot of data, though it's a lot of times out of date, disconnected, duplicated, etc. If they can organize that data first and have AI looking to find existing customers who are signaling back in market, like that's what I call like a no-brainer, low-hanging fruit opportunity to kind of go after those people, because a lot of times, we spend so much time and money going after conquest, we forget the customer business. But I look at AI today, just as I said, as an intern, and breaking that down, I think it's, if you have some expectation that you hired Albert Einstein, it's going to do all these processes flawlessly for you and completely plug it in. You're letting go 5 BDC reps. The AI is going to do everything. You'll just be horribly disappointed, and you'll turn it off within probably a day or two. And I think it's important to realize that AI is not SaaS. It's more of a species. That's what they talk about in the labs, where I'm interacting with something. It can learn based on how I'm interacting with it. You can give it obviously specialized knowledge. You can continue to train it and help it grow mentally for capacity. And the good thing is, look, it never forgets. It keeps all your context and understanding if you build it this way. And it continuously can improve. So I think that's the world we're heading to. So think of like hiring super employees, right? Though they start out green with no experience, they will quickly get to a level of your average employee, and then it'll quickly get to the level of your best employee. And then through a time, it will replace or have capacity to do what multiple employees were doing. So I just see a world changing where, you'll have one person, an orchestrator, may have 20 or 30 interns, or we'll say autonomous agents reporting to them, doing all sorts of different tasks that normally, completely human driven. So
You great answer, and there's a question in here that you actually answered as well, which is kind of along the lines of when a dealer kind of realizes, okay, AI isn't just a magic, open the box, and it's a magic show. And their question is more along the lines of, so where are you seeing people get stuck? And you're kind of talking about there's a lot of big misunderstandings. And I like the way you lay that out because it's practical in a way that a dealer is like, they're going to think through ways that they've actually handled personnel in a framework of species with AI, that there are these kind of relative points that are similar. So I want to, because you answered that question as well, I want to talk a little bit about fraud, and from that perspective where dealers are being kind of bombarded with fraud related messaging today, and for good reason. There's a ton of it out there, and you've talked a lot about it. What kind of AI generated fraud are dealers starting to run into? And for those that aren't seeing it, like, what are some of those things that could make it really dangerous?
yes, so obviously voice cloning, being able to clone someone's voice. I had a dealer, I'll give you a fun story. A dealer, said, we haven't really had any fraud. And I'm like, it's just a matter of time. He goes, no, we photocopy their driver's license, or maybe he has a scanner or something. We scan a driver's license. I was like, still not going to matter. And he's like, no. So you'll laugh. So, well, I'll tell this story. I'll let him remain anonymous only
Good idea.
because it proves this point. But I went to a store, met a sales guy, walked around the lot, just kind of, talking to the sales guy. We'll call him Tim for this story. I'll even give his name in anonymity. Walk out. He had a brand new, beautiful high country out front. So I just wrote down the last 6 of the VIN and the stock number. Then I went and called my buddy, the dealer, recorded his voice, unbeknownst to him. Maybe it was a 5-minute conversation. I just asked him some questions, recorded it. I cloned his voice. So I knew he was not going to be at the store the next day because he said he was doing something, I think visiting a different store. And I said, oh, no problem. So I called the sales guy with the dealer's voice and said, hey, I'm at my dentist. He's really interested in a high country. He hasn't driven one yet. I know we have one on the point. I think the stock number, blah, blah, blah. And the last of the VIN or X. I want you to put a temp tag on it, dealer tag, drive it over to the dentist's office, leave the keys under the mat. He's going to drive it after work. And then car shows up, porter takes the guy back. I take a nice selfie with his high country and said, I talked your high country off your lot without using a gun. And showing the power of like just voice. And I was actually inspired by this, very common in Mexico, where they will clone voices and they'll call with fake kidnapping. So I was like, maybe I could kidnap a car. And I realized I actually can kidnap a car pretty simply. So I think that's one, using voice to obviously image or document generation today is at an all-time high fraudulent level. A lot of that has come into fruition post-COVID when all the PPP loans were defrauded. I forget how many hundreds of billions of dollars was defrauded with illegals creating fraudulent documents, passports, driver's license, bank docs, all this stuff. So I feel like once COVID money dried up, where are now they going to apply this new set of skills? Auto, if you think about it, you have a expensive, high value item SKU, right? You is mobile, so I can get it and move it around. It's not like a house. Like I defraud you on a house and someone figures it out, I'm done. Like, but a car, I could take it to the port, put it in a box, and it's already left the port by the time you realize that I defrauded the store. So I think, fraud rings they're getting larger. They're highly adaptive to this business. AI is not going to look, as much as we want to use AI for good, there's a counterculture that's using it for bad. So you kind of have a standoff. So, you could use AI in like video where, it will appear that it's someone else, but it's not. It's you with a overlay, and the AI has gotten so good. And I think you would attest to this. I don't think we're 12 or 18 months of a way that it's virtually indistinguishable from truth. And I think at that point, it's such a crazy inflection point. Like, what happens? Do all videos posted online have to have some flag that says this is a real human or this is AI generated? Because tell me, what percentage, do you know what percentage of Google images are now AI generated images? Like if you go to a Google, search on Google and go on the images tab, I had heard it's 74%.
I think it's really hard to track because the number gets bigger every day, almost throughout a day. That's how much of the AI slop that's getting put out there. And it's the similar thing with video content. It's a big number and it keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, I see it on I use Shutterstock, and now I mean, oh my God, there's so much AI generated
Yes.
Pictures and video. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Where look, a year ago, it was obvious. Today, I think you have to take a really hard second look. I think within a year, you just will never know. And to me, that creates a crazy frame of fraudulent capability and future problems that are yet to be solved.
Mm-hmm. I think it is possible that, at least from a YouTube perspective, that they might force. Right now, it's optional in advanced settings whether or not you want to disclose that part or your entire video content is artificial, or it contains characters that are not real. So I think that could be coming. I think it's going to depend on consequence, and you know how it is.
Right.
It's like money. How much might it disturb some sort of financial stream? If it's too big, then they probably leave it open. But if a lot of other people start getting hurt by it, then I think they will probably come up with some. What that will be, I don't. It's going to be interesting.
Does Hollywood live? Why would you pay actors? I can synthetically make people. I mean, think about I can go on HeyGen today, and I've been messing with this. There is a point I realized where I could build a fully synthetic Todd. Have enough video capture, and then I could produce a huge amount of video content for YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere. Me typing things in, and my AI twin just going to do the work. And how far removed are we from my AI twin, joining all my Zoom meetings?
It's already here. That's already here. There are people that don't want to make content that the way that you're making it, like what we're doing right now, having a conversation about a relevant topic so that you share insights and that you reinforce these things that your target audience really needs to hear. Well, for every one of you, there's probably 100 founders, CEOs, subject matter experts, thought leaders that are afraid of the camera. They're also really shallow, actually, in their, if I'm being honest, and we're not naming names, so I'll just say there are a whole bunch of people out there that posture as if they are deep in their knowledge, their capability, and their experience, and they are shallow as it gets. Like put on the floaties.
Deep as a puddle, Sean. Deep as a puddle.
Deep as a puddle, exactly. They're all drowning in Lake Me, but their their intellect is deep as a puddle. Yeah. But anyway, aside from that, you can actually right now, I I don't like it because it gives people an out into something that is, yes, it's artificial. It checks a box for them, but the quality of it does not speak as clear. But if you want to see what's going to happen, you're already playing with so many different AI tools. There's a couple of
Yeah.
them after the show. I'll tell you, go and do this, and it'll literally, you upload it stuff. You can give it some of your YouTube videos. You could give it a bunch of core conversation samples. And just like everything else, you train it up, gets your voice, gets all of your
Yeah, my
nuance.
facial nuances and my hands
Yeah.
and being from Jersey, it's weird because I mean, I've been messing with the same thing with like text, like using that my Delphi, right? Like, hey, I again don't want to hire a ton of salespeople, so I was like, could I make synthetic Todd where you could ask him any questions about Core AI without having to like set up a sales meeting, go through the whole pitch. You're just a dealer. You want to get some questions answered. And I was like, can I do that? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that today. And I think it's getting better. I don't know if you've tried it recently, but I continue to, as you said, you have to curate these things.
The thing about this is so interesting is you have people who are starting to create this content right now. Your AI, Todd, is actually pretty good. I haven't played with it in the last maybe few weeks, but I have
Okay.
played with it. We actually asked it a bunch of questions that we used on a pod on an episode that was, I thought, really, that was pretty clever. But I think what's going to end up happening over time is people will be able to, like, what you are so smart, not that I haven't told you this before, but the fact that you are not looking to be a startup that does things the way that everyone's been doing their startups for the last 30 years, which you typically means most of the investment that you're taking on to scale the company goes into salespeople and stupid marketing
Yeah,
initiatives, and none of it is around building brand and making you known and making you liked and being trusted. And you don't need right now. You don't need anybody beyond yourself. Will you in the future? As you
sure.
are growing now, you will, but what that's going to turn into, you're going to have a completely different capable system because of AI that won't
Right.
be dependent on you going out and hiring somebody that you're going to have to pay no less than $250,000 base salary because they think that's what they're worth, even though they won't sell anything for 9 months. Like,
Yeah.
why
So
do that?
it's crazy. Like we start breaking this down, and obviously, look, from my use case, I want to be able to leverage this technology, all the same stuff I talk about in my personal like quiver of tools, because
Yeah.
you can't just talk about them in theory. I feel like you got to use them. And two stick out things to me for this, and that I've applied, I feel well, and I think I'll continue to work on. One, I posted, I think it was maybe a week ago. I showed a actual breakdown of an agentic agent I built that is what I would consider my chief of staff. So it takes and aggregates all my meetings, all the video meetings, everything throughout the day. And it takes all those transcripts, and I built a very complex prompt with all the context and on it, rips through all of those conversations, and then I get a briefing at night, via email, where it gives me my whole recap, everything, and it even attends meetings that I'm not in. So my devs meetings or all my customer facing meetings where I can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
But my other Todd can be everywhere all the time. And I
Yeah.
think about this because this is how this technology works. And if you really, really get behind it, it's so transformational. I think it's become transformational for me personally, for our business. And then I think I'm trying to extend that into our dealer partners. And I just see like that workflow that I built, I thought was like, oh, okay, here's a really easy way for you to leverage that, this
Yeah.
type of technology. And also showing that that technology still has fragility built into it, right? Like some days it's like, oh, it failed to go scrape the transcripts. So I get
Mhm.
it as like my chief of staff briefing is like missing like all the content. It has all the sections, and I'm like, God, damn it, something broke. And I realized then it's like, okay, it's not just building a very elaborate and controlled workflow. Then you have to go in and how do I remove steps out of this workflow to continue to improve the stability of the workflow? And as you say, I've got it down to 8 steps. I think I can get it down. My goal is to get it under 5. And I think at that point, stability increases and, consistency. But I look at where we're at today and I was like, man, every dealer should be taking advantage of this. Do you imagine knowing like organizationally, like what everybody's doing always in real time? Like that's like mind blowing to have a dealership with, I don't know, 200 workers, and you have complete visibility and context into every meeting, every vendor meeting, every internal meeting, policy meetings, troubled customers. All that data can be rolled into, into a useful brain. I think we've talked about this before, but I feel like, wow, what a world that is going to be uncovered.
Yeah, it is a quite exciting ride. I love the fact that your example, and I remember seeing the post of building that agent. I have a couple that do similar things like that, and I love it. I have one that literally goes back through a couple of LLMs if I'm brainstorming ideas or doing mini builds or whatever it may be. I need you to aggregate all this stuff and summarize, and what stuff should I actually be working on tomorrow or later this week, because otherwise it crowds out other things in terms of just operating a business and what's priority. But you also mentioned something that reminded me of when I go to the note takers and I'm looking for summaries and action items. I shouldn't be, but I'm surprised. Almost every meeting, even the ones that I'm in, also the ones my note taker's not in, of course, but the ones that I'm in, there are always 1 or 2 things. So I'm like, man, I totally missed that somebody said something that was really important. Now that I have the AI capabilities to actually look for these things, make sure that I don't miss them. It's astonishing. I want to hit on something that you mentioned in the last several minutes that I think is relevant, and I've seen you write it and heard you say it before, which is that AI can't impersonate trust. And so when you're giving that example of fake voice, faked out the dealer, kidnapped the car, that's not hypothetical. Like that's a real thing. And if you think that if you loved Gone in 60 Seconds, even the remake with Reno Raines, spelled just like mine, by the way, if you liked that movie, think about what the most advanced version of a fraud ring with AI is doing and capable of doing today. It's insane, but it can't impersonate trust, which is really, I think, something that dealers need to key in on, how important that is.
It is.
But I do want to mention something to you around. You talk about fragmentation across the big systems that dealers have in place, the DMS systems, the CRM systems, and really even email to some extent, because there's a lot of opportunity there. What are your thoughts? How does the lack of integration in those areas create vulnerability relative to like fraud or even simple like data errors?
Well, think about that. If your data is all siloed, you could go in and start to defraud something and nothing else is going to detect it. I feel like by not having a clear organizational 360-degree view of all your systems and underlying data, I believe you're always more vulnerable. Just in the sense that, you have far more attack vectors. Every system is a potential, hackable system. So, think about it, it's exponentially bad. You have 20 systems. Every one of those could be hacked with consumer data in, or if you had 5 or 3 or 2, right? Like less is going to be a little bit better. And I think like there's a world where you own your data layer and then tools will plug into your data layer, but you're never exposing your true data to your upstream providers. And I think that's the world dealers need to be heading towards. And I think it's just, again, a key concept that we've got to get our heads around. Data ownership is so valuable. And yet dealers are still caught in this, my land, my inventory, my building, like my people. And I'm like, all of that is true. But the caveat, the little thing also, your data is more valuable than all of that. And it's hard for people sometimes to get their head around that, because it hasn't. I'm going to say data's always been incredibly valuable. I think AI was the catalyst to move data to the top of the value chain. And look, you don't have to believe a word I'm saying right now. Look at the top 8. Look at FANG, all the companies, Facebook, Amazon, like look at them. Apple, right? If you look at that group, where is their value truly derived from? Data. It is. And I'll give you a automotive specific one. So do you have any knowledge about like telematics, for our business, right? Like, in vehicle, right? Like systems.
Mm-hmm.
So that is estimated to become $1 trillion business. Do you know how much dealers are going to get of that? Goose egg. The OEMs have locked it completely up. And here's a good example where, and it's all data driven. Think of the data intelligence, where the car is, how long it sits there, like how it's moving, like when things maybe are going to fail on it. That data is so incredibly valuable, and dealers got nothing. So I think today dealers have to look at their data as like, okay, I got to get control of this. This needs to be my mission number one. If it's not your mission in 2025, it better be your number one mission in 2026. Forget AI. Forget everything else. Forget swapping CRMs to sell 4 more cars a month. Forget everything until you get in possession totally of your data and you're controlling the pipes. That is the number one thing to me to focus on, because AI is an accelerant of data. But if your data is fragmented, that means AI, you'll never truly get the benefit of it. And I think 2022 is that like super catalyst for us to go, oh, data is super important, but now AI needs data to be powered. So we need to get the data clean, organized, updated, and put into, vectored, that we can start using it to train our AI to perform different things for the dealership. And look, I'll give you another just kind of use case around this, where I think dealers, if you rethink about your data, and for most dealers, you have a DMS, and through time, the data in the DMS decays. So anything over about like 7-8 years, the data just gets really like decayed out. It's like a rotting, it's like a rotting body basically, right? And then you'll have more people on the outs. They no longer own those cars. They're not even living. They don't even live in your PMA anymore. They've moved. A million things like happen outside of on data age like structure. So this is where I feel like dealers need to though figure out how to capture that data, keep it clean, keep it updated. And then think about, like, I'll give you a good real world use case you could do right now. If you clean up all your data, including your CRM data, all the customers you did not sell 24 to 48 months ago, okay? Leads that went dark, you never did them. You could re-scrub them up, check current ownership if you have enough information. Even if you don't, you can still look based on, can we match them to an Equifax actual underlying person? If we can score them. If they score high enough, we know that they're potentially back in market. You can get a second round out of that lead that you overpaid for the first time. Those are to me, just simple examples you could do tomorrow.
Great examples. So definitely sounds like, I don't want to call them small steps because they they kind of aren't in terms of their importance, but ownership of data, that's huge. So dealers, as you're listening and or watching, that's huge. And then obviously it's cleanliness, right? If it's super messy, this is another area where you talk about you're just laying out all the time, chapter and verse. The hygiene of that data matters, right? I think you've said a quote of yours is something like, "You can't build intelligence on top of noise," something like that, which I
Man,
think is
you're like, you got all
like
my
a
quotes,
great
buddy.
framework.
You're doing great, brother. I was like,
Yeah.
this is good.
Well, hey, I'm not one of these other chumps in these automotive podcast worlds. Come on, man.
I know, man.
Um,
You make it
we
happen.
we we want to get good stuff for have
Right.
a conversation that's meaningful to the audience. It's about giving them what's on there. So I got to make sure. Now I know that one of the common questions that you hear a lot is on data ownership,
Yes.
and so
I
is
can give you a good
there?
frame on that. Justin,
y-
it's very interesting. So dealers, a lot of times they'll come to us and be like, well, we own our data. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, well, where's your data? Our CRM, our DMS. I was like, you own it. Yes, we own our data. I was like, okay. So I want you to call up your DMS provider and ask them to send you the data schema for how the data is structured inside all the tables in the, let's say, DMS.
Mhm.
And I was like, they're like, why? I was like, just go ask. 0% that a provider is going to give you that. And so what I've had to explain to the dealer is that the DMS owns the field and the field name. So customer underscore ID first name or whatever. And then, that field, the dealer owns what's in the field. The name, let's say Todd. But if I remove the context of the data schema, the block, and the naming convention, all as I get delivered to me is a big pile of junk. It's like, it would be like a puzzle. You just sent me a puzzle, but there's no picture on it anymore. So you don't own your data unless you own the schema that lives above. And you have to have that in place. So this is the quickest way to understand data ownership. Meaning I can export something out of one of these primary systems with the schema intact. And we know that doesn't happen. Hence, in point, you change DMS or CRM, they just give you a data dump where it's literally like they took all your organized data and they just mashed it together in a data pool of swamp, and then they hand it off to you. And now you have to try to remap it, and remapping never works. It's just, and AI will not do that. So I think it's such a critical thing in today's world. The dealers have to make the investment into what I call data sovereignty. You have to be the owner of your own future.
In a
And
scenario like that, where that exact scenario, and they get the dreaded data dump, is there, or I maybe should more accurately say, how does QoreAI help a dealer with that mountain of chaos, like turn it into something that they can use?
So we try to plow through it as best as possible. There is no magic formula. So what we like to do is start extracting the data well before that the dealer already has their system set up. Because if you think about it, and think about this scenario, if any dealer is listening and you have any, even twinkling of a thought that you might change a DMS or you might change your CRM, months and months before you ever consider that, get all your data out and organized. Because a few things there. If I have all my data streaming out and it's organized and it's cleaned up in a service, then when I want to turn on the new tool, I can easily export structured data to a structured data environment. I can much more cleanly map a structured format schema to a structured format schema. And it's clean data going in. Because right now, if you take a dump out of, let's say, your current CRM and you upload the crap into the new CRM, what did you really do? You moved one trash can over and put it into the new, you took the trash and put it into the new trash bucket, but you didn't take the time to clean it and organize it. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm like, that's why I was like, if anybody is thinking of a switch, to get control of your data first. It pays in spades.
Yeah, that's a great visualization, actually. Another thing that you have shared that I think gets dealers' attention is that 40% of customer records can be just flat out wrong, which is wild.
Oh, that's at minimum.
Yeah, right. And I was going to say, I think that actually is much, much greater than that. And you guys are now seeing examples of 40%. It's like, okay, you'd be lucky if it was just 40%.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit to the kind of real business impacts for the dealer when the data is that horrible? Because it certainly is in a couple of areas that I think dealers are probably gets their attention even more so is how it affects profitability at the store and maybe just daily operations when you've got that high of percentage of customer records just being completely wrong.
Sure. So let's talk decay and then outcomes. So decay, average emails decay at 2.5% a month. So over 30% a year. So if you're not hygiening monthly, you're already behind. Home addresses, 10 to 14% a year. Depends. Do you live around college campus, apartments, more transient, can affect it slightly. Phone numbers, up to 25% a year. Kind of scary. Also dependent on your personas, your audiences that are buying cars from you. Obviously, if you're selling a lot of banged up or lower, more marginal credit people, higher turnover in phone numbers. If we look at ownership, so you quoted 40%. We've seen as high as 65%. It depends on the longevity of the database that's being analyzed. The longer and older the database of data, meaning 5, 8, 10 plus years, then the out years, the quality of that data is so diminished. Okay. So cleaning all that up, right? If you think about it, like if you don't clean it up, I believe, and I have a model that I built that explains this. It's interesting. We feel at a minimum, it's costing you $2 per customer per year to market to bad data. So case in point, if you have a database of 20,000 and let's say 40% is bad, right? So you have 8,000 bad records. And let's say, you're spending, at least $2 per record. I mean, think about that and how many times you market to them. Like the math is crazy against you when you are sending bad direct mail, bad emails, bad text, your physical people call and that customer no longer owns it. Or think about that time. To me, our most valuable asset is time and time optimization. So when I give you bad information, I go make you chase it down. It is a terrible use of time. And you only have so many selling days at a dealership, so many selling hours, so many selling minutes. You should constantly be thinking about optimizing that. And that begins with data. And I had built, and it's funny. So again, back to probably a core thing. So we record all our demos, and then I constantly kept monitoring like all the questions that they're asking. And typical question would come up: how much is it? And like me, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the best sales guy on the planet. I'd be like, well, let me kind of, and I walk them through this kind of disconnected, I felt, process, right? So I was like, I was so frustrated after doing this multiple times. I was like, how do I solve this problem? So I sat down and said, well, what are the steps to build a pricing model? for a dealer. So I then built a prompt in Lovable, and I built a whole workflow where you just enter the dealer's name, you do the number of stores, you do then how much data they have, the setup fee, and it gives you the total output, and it's a printable quote that I could send them. And I'm like, man, I had AI, what I call vibe coded it. I have it on a back page on our website. And I look at something and I'm like, that we're going to see dealers start solving their problems like this internally. So, case in point, one of our dealer partners, Scott Falcone, World Auto, great guy. He built something similar for his customers to walk through affordability. So he sits with the customer, the salesperson, and he walk through this online process, and it's closing people like crazy. And I have to say, when you can sit with the customer and collaborate together, it's far more impactful than me just telling you a price. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it even for Qore, us selling our stores. Our uptake has rocketed up.
I love that. So is this something that you will provide the link to somebody who's interested and they get to self-guide through it?
I've been
or do you use it as a tool with them?
Yeah, I've been guiding it today, but my ambition is to release it into kind of a self-guided, get your own price. Because look, I think my deepest ambition goal is you do not need to call Qore to sign up for Qore. I will give you all the information you need transparently. I will show you the goods and bads of data management and ownership. I will show you the onboarding process and what it looks like over the first 60 days. Mm-hmm. I'll show you financially what's going to cost and how it's going to impact you. And I think right now I'm still doing it. You know what I mean? Like there's still work to be done in that, but absolutely think that there is a point where you could just, and we're close to this piece. You'll go on Qore. You can upload 1,000 of your own records. It will data health score check you. So it won't give you back the updates, but it'll tell you how many of those people are in market. It'll tell you how clean your data is, how bad, it'll give you all the printouts. So think of it like your blood test, right? Mm-hmm. For yourself. Sean, you're deficient in D, like vitamin. Mm-hmm. And hey, Sean, your HDL is slightly elevated. So think of the same thing, data health check free. You go online, punch that in, and then after that, it'll email you your results. And I think out of that, I'm going to have a link that says, here, you can now go through and get more information or, see how much it's going to cost to do your whole store and the number of records you have, et cetera. And let them kind of go through it themselves. Because again, do you really want to sit in a pitch? No.
No.
You're required to get the information because no one's really built a really good product-led growth strategy in automotive.
Yeah. You are absolutely singing my songs, my greatest hits. It is why, not for lack of effort, because you have been on this particular journey, which is different. But it is the way. It is the way and the only way, I think, especially when you're selling B2B. Yeah. And this is another example of you, dude, you have it. You get it. People do not want a salesperson to literally be following them right over their shoulder. You could feel their breath on your earlobe, all the way through the process. And you and I have been in companies where that was the way. And whether people liked it then or not, probably didn't, but it was the way that things needed to be done. It isn't anymore. And it hasn't been for years. But the capabilities now are unlocked, they're abundant, and you just literally gave people, if they don't already love all the perspectives and your unique point of view on this very important topic, they should be impressed by the way that you're actually leading yourself and QoreAI because of this. You understand that consumers just want the information. Here's the information, abundant. I'm going to share. I'm going to post every single day in all these places where I know my audience hangs out. And oh, by the way, when you catch a level of interest that wants more time and you're going to dig deeper, you're basically now laying out the story of people never feel like you have to stand over them and put this ridiculous pressure on them. You're just letting them have this self-discovery, which is what everyone wants. And when you have good stuff, when you really are solving problems,
Right.
people are so refreshed by the types of experiences that you're literally not just building, but that you're putting out there. And I love it. So unless you had a final thought, the last thing I wanted to ask you is when people want to connect with you and they just, hey, where's the best place? Where do you tell people if they want to be able to get in connection with you and maybe send you a message and maybe have a first conversation?
Yeah, look, a few things. First, I recently finished a white paper about the AI in the auto industry over the next decade. It's at toddsmith.ai. I know, really clever there. But I built that to give a vision of what's to come over the next decade. And on there is also Synthetic Todd, where you can have a conversation with Synthetic Todd about QoreAI. But look, I love LinkedIn. I like YouTube. I like X. But I feel like LinkedIn, I probably spend the most time. And in fact, Sean, just a little point. Today, it was my 500th post in a row.
Love it.
So I feel like I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn educating, having conversations with dealers who just have questions like in the background, and maybe they don't want a meeting. They just want to hit me in a DM and go, hey, what about this? Like,
yeah,
what do you think about that? And listen, I respond to everybody. Me, actually, personally, not Synthetic Todd. So I want to be clear. Synthetic Todd has his uses, but I like to meet and engage with everyone. So I think a few things like easy on LinkedIn. If you're in any NCM 20 groups, I speak at a lot of them. You can get me invited as a speaker to come share time there. Or you could just reach out to me direct. It's just Todd, TODD, at QoreAI.com. So thank you.
I love it. Yeah, of course. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Qore Conversations. Always a big thanks, Todd, bringing the clarity, the candor that we all need when it comes to this AI and data and all the stuff in automotive. There's a lot of voices. There's some that are much more in tune to what you should be listening to. So, hey, if you got some stuff out of this conversation, make sure to follow, subscribe, get all the stuff on YouTube. Follow Todd on LinkedIn. If you're ready to take control of your data, you want to make this stuff really work, go to QoreAI.com. That's QoreAI.com, QoreAI.com to learn more. Until next time, thanks for listening. Appreciate it.